Let me tell you something, time is only involved in the understanding stage. At acceptance, you know that now is the only reality. But I tell you now, feeling must precede evidence. It reverses the common approach to manifestation. As long as you're waiting for something, you're pushing it into a future that never arrives. Let me share with you how each of the 7 principles operates at each stage. Take the first principle, consciousness is the only reality. At the understanding stage, you grasp this intellectually. At the acceptance stage, you know it is truth. At the application stage, you live from it. At the transformation stage, your world reflects it. Consider how the second principle, the world is yourself pushed out, works through these stages. At understanding, you see the logic of it. At acceptance, you know it as fact. At application, you take full responsibility for your world. At transformation, your world reshapes itself to match your consciousness. Many of you may be wondering about the role of time in these stages. Let me tell you something, time is only involved in the understanding stage. Once you move to acceptance, time ceases to be a factor. For you see, acceptance and application and transformation are all aspects of the eternal now. Let me share with you how the third principle, the feeling is the secret, operates through these 4 stages. At the understanding stage, you grasp that feeling is more powerful than thought. At the acceptance stage, you know that feeling is the very substance of creation. At the application stage, you naturally occupy the feeling of your wish fulfilled. At the transformation stage, your world rearranges itself to match your feeling. Consider this carefully. Most people try to feel after they see evidence of their desire. But I tell you now, feeling must precede evidence. This is why the third principle is so transformative. It reverses the common approach to manifestation. Let me show you how the fourth principle, everyone is yourself pushed out, works through these stages. At understanding, you see how others reflect your consciousness. At acceptance, you know they must reflect your consciousness. At application, you naturally revise your consciousness of others. At transformation, they instantly begin to reflect your revised consciousness. Many of you may be thinking, but Neville, what if others have free will? Let me tell you something my teacher Abdullah taught me. There is only one consciousness individualizing all of humanity. Therefore, what you call others' free will is really your consciousness of them pushed out. Consider how the fifth principle, there is no time in consciousness, operates through these stages. At understanding, you grasp that time is psychological, not chronological. At acceptance, you know that now is the only reality. At application, you naturally live from the end. At transformation, your desired future becomes your present reality. Let me share with you what happened when I first grasped this principle. I saw that all my waiting for things to manifest was actually delaying their manifestation. For you see, as long as you're waiting for something, you're pushing it into a future that never arrives. Consider how the sixth principle, revision is creation, works through these stages. At understanding, you see that memory can be changed. At acceptance, you know that revising the past changes the present. At application, you naturally revise unwanted experiences. At transformation, your revised past creates a new present. Let me share with you how the seventh principle, imaginal acts become facts, operates through these stages. At understanding, you grasp that imagination creates reality. At acceptance, you know that what you imagine must externalize itself. At application, you naturally live in your imagination. At transformation, your imaginal acts become your physical facts. Consider this carefully. When these seven principles are properly understood and applied together, they create what I call the divine circle of creation. The first principle establishes that consciousness is the only reality. The second principle shows that the world must reflect consciousness. The third principle reveals how to impress consciousness through feeling. The fourth principle demonstrates that everyone must play their part. The fifth principle eliminates time from the equation. The sixth principle allows for instant revision of unwanted states. And the seventh principle guarantees manifestation. Let me share with you the three most common mistakes people make when applying these principles. The first mistake is trying to use them as techniques rather than living them as truth. The second mistake is looking for results before fully accepting the principles. The third mistake is abandoning the principles when circumstances seem to contradict them. But I tell you now, when you truly understand these principles, you cannot make these mistakes. For you see, understanding brings acceptance. Acceptance brings application. And application brings transformation, all in a single day. Consider what happens when you truly grasp these principles. You stop trying to change things in the outer world because you know the outer world is yourself pushed out. You stop waiting for things to happen because you know there is no time in consciousness. You stop worrying about others' reactions because you know they are yourself pushed out. Let me share with you what I call the three orders of understanding these principles. The first order is intellectual understanding. You grasp them with your mind. The second order is emotional understanding. You feel their truth in your heart. The third order is spiritual understanding. You know them in your soul. Let me share with you what I call the 5 states of consciousness that these principles reveal. The first state is the state of confusion. This is where most people lie, not understanding that they are the creators of their reality. The second state is the state of awakening. This is where you begin to grasp these principles intellectually. You start to see the connection between your consciousness and your world. But be careful, many people get stuck in this state, endlessly studying but never moving to application. The third state is the state of testing. This is where you begin to apply these principles in your life. You start small, testing them in various situations. But remember, you're not really testing the principles, you're testing your understanding of them. For these principles are law, as exact as mathematics. The fourth state is the state of knowing. This is where you move beyond testing to absolute certainty. You no longer need proof because you know these principles are true, just as you know your own name is true. The fifth state is the state of being. This is where you don't just know the principles, you become them. You live from them naturally, effortlessly, continuously. This is the state from which instant transformation occurs. Consider how these states relate to the 7 principles. In the state of confusion, you don't even know these principles exist. In the state of awakening, you begin to understand them. In the state of testing, you start to apply them. In the state of knowing, you trust them completely. In the state of being, you are them. Let me share with you what happened when I moved through these states. In the state of confusion, I was like everyone else, believing in external causes, blaming circumstances, waiting for things to change. In the state of awakening, I began to see that my consciousness was creating my reality. But I wasn't yet ready to take full responsibility for it. In the state of testing, I began to apply these principles in specific situations. I would consciously revise events, imagine desired outcomes, assume the feeling of wishes fulfilled. And I saw results, but I was still separate from the principles. In the state of knowing, something profound happened. I no longer needed to test these principles because I knew them as law. Just as you don't test whether gravity will work each morning, I no longer tested whether these principles would work. I knew they must work because they are law. Let me share with you what the state of being looks like. In this state, you don't try to use the principles, you live them. You don't think about consciousness being the only reality, you live from that knowing. You don't try to feel your wish fulfilled, you naturally occupy that state. Consider what happens when you reach this state of being. The 7 principles are no longer separate from you, they are you. The first principle, consciousness is the only reality, becomes your natural state of awareness. The second principle, the world is yourself pushed out, becomes your constant understanding. The third principle, the feeling is the secret, becomes your natural way of creating. The fourth principle, everyone is yourself pushed out, becomes your fundamental relationship with others. The fifth principle, there is no time in consciousness, becomes your perpetual now. The sixth principle, revision is creation, becomes your automatic response to unwanted events. And the seventh principle, imaginal acts become facts, becomes your normal way of living. Let me share with you the three signs that indicate you've reached the state of being. First, you no longer try to make things happen. You know they must happen according to law. Second, you no longer react to circumstances, you simply revise them. Third, you no longer wait for manifestation, you live from the end. Consider this carefully. These 7 principles transform my life in one day, not because they are magical, but because they are law. When you truly understand them, truly live them, transformation must follow. It cannot be otherwise. Let me share with you the final truth about these 7 principles. When fully understood and lived from, they eliminate what most people call problems. For you see, problems can only exist when you believe in external causes. When you know that consciousness is the only reality, that the world is yourself pushed out, that feeling is the secret, that everyone is yourself pushed out, that there is no time, that revision is creation, and that imaginal acts become facts. What problem could possibly exist? Consider this carefully. Every problem you think you have is simply a misunderstanding of these principles. If you have a financial problem, you're forgetting that consciousness is the only reality. If you have a relationship problem, you're forgetting that everyone is yourself pushed out. If you have a health problem, you're forgetting that feeling is the secret. Let me share with you what happens when you live from these principles. You stop trying to solve problems and start revising states of consciousness. You stop trying to change others and start changing your consciousness of them. You stop trying to make things happen and start living from the end. These principles transformed my life in one day because I stopped trying to use them and started living them. I stopped seeing them as tools and started seeing them as laws. I stopped applying them occasionally and started living from them continuously. Remember this, transformation doesn't take time. It takes understanding. When you truly understand these 7 principles, truly live from them, truly become them, your entire world must transform. Not because you made it happen, but because it must happen according to law. That's the message I want to leave with you tonight. These principles will transform your life in one day when you truly understand them. Not because they are magical, but because they are law. Not because they are techniques, but because they are truth. And isn't that worth thinking about? Thank you all, and good night.